Hey, how's everybody doing today? I found a book that I think is a little bit silly, but I think you might like it. It has some pretty funny pictures in it. It's called The Secret Life of Squirrels. And you will notice that the little squirrel is mailing a letter. It's written by Nancy Rose, and it also has photographs instead of drawings. And lots of times when we see books with photographs, we think that those are nonfiction. We think they're true because they have photographs. But we're going to read this, and when we get to the end, we're going to decide, was it fiction or nonfiction? Because it's got photographs. I don't know. Is it fiction or nonfiction? And then also at the end, we're going to see if we can remember some of the things that the squirrel did. So it's called The Secret Life of Squirrels. Look at that. Most squirrels spend their days gathering nuts and climbing trees. Not Mr. Peanuts. He is a rather unusual squirrel. See, it says Mr. Peanuts right there. I bet you guys have squirrels in your yard, or you see them at the park climbing trees. Mr. Peanuts enjoys activities such as cooking on his tiny grill. His hot dogs are delicious. Look at that. You see him? Mr. Peanuts plays the piano beautifully. His favorite piece is Moonlight Sonata. Most squirrels would find that piece difficult to play, but then again, most squirrels don't play the piano. See him playing the piano? Mr. Peanuts likes to read. His favorite books are A Tale of Two Cities and Goodnight Nut. He especially likes to read aloud. You may have heard him chattering in your backyard. Now I have a question for you. We were talking about fiction or nonfiction. I bet you have an idea in your head already whether this is a true story or a made-up story. Mr. Peanuts has a busy and mostly happy life, but once in a while, he feels lonely. Oh. Being a clever squirrel, Mr. Peanuts has an idea. He sits down and writes a letter using his very best penmanship. That's another word for handwriting. Dear Cousin Squirrel, please come for a visit. I promise you will have an excellent time. Sincerely, Mr. Peanuts. He mails the letter the very next day. Then he waits and waits and waits some more. That's the thing about sending a letter, isn't it? It usually takes a few days before you get a letter back. But it sure is fun when you get a letter back. He checks his mailbox every day hoping for a reply. One day he finds a letter waiting for him. It reads, Dear Mr. Peanut, my favorite cuz, thanks for the letter. It's been too long. Can't wait to see what you're up to these days. I'll be there soon. Cheers, Cousin Squirrel. Mr. Peanut smiles as he reads the tiny letter over and over, then he gets right to work. He wants to make sure everything is perfect for his cousin's visit. I wonder what a tiny squirrel is going to do to prepare for a visit. Mr. Peanuts dusts and cleans. He even vacuums under the rug. He does laundry, chattering to himself as he works. He is the tidiest squirrel around, and certainly the only one with a washer and dryer. Mr. Peanuts makes up his cousin's bed just so, with the sheets tucked in tight. He wants him to have a great night's sleep. He bakes his most delicious hazelnut chocolate cake. He tastes the batter just to be sure it is sweet enough. Mr. Peanuts takes a bath with his rubber ducky. A squirrel can never be too clean. He even brushes his whiskers. Just look at that handsome squirrel in the mirror. Finally, Cousin Squirrel arrives. He is just in time for breakfast. Mr. Peanuts and Cousin Squirrel both love pancakes. Later, the two squirrels go for a wagon ride. Mr. Peanut soon learns that 2 squirrels travel faster than 1. Mr. Peanuts teaches Cousin Squirrel how to play chess. Cousin Squirrel learns quickly. It is more fun to play chess with a friend, thinks Mr. Peanuts, even if you don't always win. It is a beautiful day, so they pack a picnic. Cousin Squirrel makes his peanut butter sandwiches with an extra layer of crunchy peanuts. Mr. Peanuts has never thought to try that. It tastes scrumptious. Scrumptious is one of my very favorite words. That night they build a campfire and scare each other with ghost stories, including the old haunted tree and the one-eyed owl. You can't tell yourself a ghost story, thinks Mr. Peanuts. You need a friend. The next day they go out for ice cream. Mr. Peanuts has his usual scoop of peanut brittle. Cousin Squirrel tries the flavor of the month, buttery salted pecan. You guys like to go out for ice cream? I've never seen a squirrel at the ice cream store. Mr. Peanuts and Cousin Squirrel are 2 rather unusual squirrels who have a wonderful time together. Having a friend makes everything twice as nice. So what do you think? Fiction or nonfiction? It had pictures, and the squirrel looks like a real squirrel, but is it a true story or a made-up story? What do you think? Fiction or nonfiction? Yep, you're right, it is fiction. Even though it's photographs, and even though the squirrel is real, we know that in real life, squirrels don't play the piano, and they don't bake cakes, right? So it's a fiction story, but it's a fun little story, I think. Okay, so we thought that we would try to remember some of the things that the squirrel did in the book. So, can you think of 1 or 2 things that the squirrel did? Adventures he had, things he prepared, things he was good at doing? Can you think of a couple? Because good readers, when they read, they're always trying to remember what they read, excuse me. So, I remember some things here. Let's see. He grilled hot dogs. He played the piano. That was a pretty good one. Let's see what else were some of the other things. Sent a letter to his cousin. He cleaned his house. Did the laundry. Remember that one? Baked a cake. Chocolate hazelnut cake, if we want to get specific. Then when his cousin came, they played some chess. Went on a picnic. Do you remember what they had to eat? Peanut butter sandwiches. They went out for ice cream. And then at the end, it shows what good friends they are. So when I first read this book, the first thing I thought was, how did that lady get those pictures? Well, it turns out in the back of the book, this is so cool, she has a Q&A. That means questions and answers. And people have asked her some questions, and there are lots of answers to different questions, but I wanted to find out, like, is this a pet squirrel? Does it live with her? Turns out it's not. She makes the little props, like the grill and the washing machine, and then she puts them on her deck on a board, and she puts peanuts out and gets the squirrels to come up there and explore around the area. So she doesn't touch the squirrels. She doesn't do anything with the squirrels. She'll set up the whole thing outside. She makes all the little parts, and then she hides peanuts or little nuts and waits for the squirrels to come up there. And then she has to wait. Sometimes it says she waits a whole day and never sees a squirrel. And a lot of times it takes her like 100 pictures to get just the right one she wants for the book. Like, let's look at one here. Like when she's got the little squirrel by the dresser, she would just hide a little peanut there until the squirrel came up and looked, and then she would quick snap, 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 snap pictures and hope she gets a good one. So she spends a lot of time taking pictures of squirrels on her deck. So pretty cool idea, because it's never a good idea to touch wild animals because you can get hurt. So that was The Secret Life of Squirrels. So when you see them outside, though, you can imagine those squirrels in your yard having a really amazing adventures. All right, I'll keep reading. You're going to keep reading. I will see you next week with another book. Stay safe.